Nicaragua shuts down 1,500 NGOs in major crackdown. In a sweeping move, the Nicaraguan government, led by President Daniel Ortega, has outlawed 1,500 non-governmental organizations, NGOs, including prominent religious charities such as the Nicaraguan Red Cross and various Catholic organizations. This decision, announced on August 19, 2024, marks the largest single operation against NGOs in the country to date, and is part of a broader campaign to suppress civil society perceived as adversarial to Ortega's regime. Context of the crackdown. The recent ban brings the total number of NGOs shut down since 2018 to over 5,100. This crackdown intensified following widespread protests against Ortega's government in 2018, which resulted in a violent response from the authorities, leading to more than 300 deaths, according to United Nations reports. The Ortega administration has since targeted various civil society organizations, accusing them of failing to comply with financial reporting requirements and labeling them as hostile entities. The government claims that the NGOs had not declared their income properly and had begun seizing their assets. Many of these organizations, primarily religious in nature, have been accused of being involved in what Ortega's government describes as an attempted coup d'état, allegedly backed by the United States and religious groups. The implications of this crackdown are profound. The closure of these NGOs not only affects their operations but also the communities they serve, including health initiatives, women's rights advocacy, and support for marginalized groups. The government's actions have extended beyond NGOs to include sports clubs, educational institutions, and various civic organizations, effectively stifling dissent and limiting the space for civil society to operate. In recent months, the Ortega administration has also mandated that all NGOs work exclusively in partnership with state entities, further tightening its grip on civil society. This regulation has raised concerns about the independence of organizations and their ability to operate freely without government interference. The international community has reacted strongly to the ongoing repression in Nicaragua. A panel of United Nations experts has condemned the systematic violations of human rights occurring in the country, highlighting issues such as arbitrary detentions and religious persecution. The Inter-American Commission on Human Rights has called for an end to the repression and the immediate release of political prisoners. Ortega's government has faced sanctions from the United States and the European Union, which have criticized the regime's authoritarian practices and human rights abuses. The expulsion of over 300 political opponents, journalists, and activists in recent years has further isolated Nicaragua from the international community. Historical background of Daniel Ortega. Daniel Ortega has been a central figure in Nicaraguan politics since the Sandinista Revolution in 1979, which overthrew the Somoza dictatorship. After serving as president from 1985 to 1990, he returned to power in 2007, and has since consolidated control over the government, eliminating presidential term limits and suppressing opposition. The current crackdown on NGOs and civil society is seen as a continuation of Ortega's efforts to maintain power amid growing dissent. His administration's narrative frames the 2018 protests as a foreign-backed coup attempt, justifying the harsh measures taken against perceived opponents. In conclusion, the closure of 1,500 NGOs in Nicaragua represents a significant escalation in the government's campaign against civil society and dissent. As the regime continues to tighten its grip, the future of civic engagement and human rights in Nicaragua remains uncertain. The international community's response will be crucial in addressing the ongoing human rights violations and supporting the Nicaraguan people in their struggle for freedom and justice.